Something doesn't add up at Red Bull, and the paddock can feel it. Just days after one of their worst weekends in recent memory, right when everyone thought they were down, something changed. Quietly, almost too quietly. And now, heading into Japan, Red Bull isn't panicking. They're promising something else entirely, a comeback. But here's the twist. This isn't just about fixing a car. This is about sending a message to Mercedes, to Ferrari, to everyone. And it starts in China, where everything began to fall apart. The RB22 didn't just struggle in China, it collapsed under pressure. Max Verstappen didn't finish the race. A coolant fault forced him out before he could do anything meaningful. Isaac Hadjar limped home in 8th place, but 87 seconds behind the race leader. In Formula One, that's not a gap, that's a different race. And inside the garage, the problems were stacking up. Handling issues, reliability failures, a car that simply didn't respond. Laurent Mekies didn't hide from it. He came out and said exactly how bad the situation was. Being on the back foot at the start of a sprint weekend is the worst possible scenario, as there is really little time to catch up and get on top of any difficulties. But then came the deeper truth. The one that explains why Red Bull even ended up here in the first place. Mekies admitted, "We knew that just getting onto the grid in Melbourne with our own PU was a major achievement in itself, and it would have been naive not to expect we would encounter reliability issues." Think about that for a second. Red Bull, the team that dominated entire seasons, the team that won 21 out of 22 races in 2023, is now admitting they expected problems just to show up. And it didn't stop there. Mekies confirmed, "We had to retire Max because of a coolant fault. However, this was not our only issue, as overall performance-wise, our package showed some significant shortcomings." Significant shortcomings. That's not the language of a team fighting for a title. That's the language of a team trying to survive. But here's where things start to get strange. Because while the results say crisis, Red Bull says opportunity. While Red Bull was struggling on track, something else was happening behind the scenes. Something far more damaging than a coolant leak. Leaked data from China suggests the RB22 is massively overweight. Not by a few kilograms, not by a small margin. By around 62.8 pounds over the minimum weight limit. That's not just heavy, that's catastrophic. In Formula One, every extra pound costs lap time, and in this case, the weight deficit translates to nearly a full second per lap, 1 second, every single lap. That's the difference between pole position and the midfield. While Mercedes is almost perfectly on the weight limit, barely losing any performance at all, Red Bull is bleeding pace before the race even starts. And suddenly, everything makes sense. The slow corners, the tire wear, the lack of pace, the frustration radiating from the garage. Even Verstappen couldn't hide it. On team radio, he called the car horrendous. Not difficult, not tricky, horrendous. Because no matter how talented you are, no matter how aggressively you drive, you cannot fight physics. A heavier car means slower acceleration, longer braking distances, more stress on the tires, and less grip through corners. Red Bull is dealing with all of it simultaneously. Pierre Gasly admitted to the weight challenge publicly as well, saying, "Challenges with the weight? It's the case for everybody. Maybe some people did a better job than us, but on our side, we will have to find some weight on the car." That line hits differently when you understand what it means. They didn't just miss the weight target, they missed it badly. And now, every second they spend fixing the weight problem is time they're not spending making the car faster. But here's where the narrative flips, because despite everything, the failures, the leaks, the public criticism, Red Bull is not backing down. Mekies' tone was surprisingly composed when addressing the gap to Mercedes. "I'm not sure if worried is the right word. It's large, no question. It didn't really come as a surprise, not a surprise. Let that sink in. They expected Mercedes to come out strong. We were expecting them to be very, very strong as the preseason test built up. So, not a surprise that it's large." And then came the line that changes the framing of this entire season. "On the other hand, we expect the season to be very long." This isn't panic. This is patience. Calculated, deliberate patience. Mekies went further with a development promise that should make rivals pay attention. We expect the development rate to be much higher than what we have seen in the past. One sentence, and it should make Mercedes nervous. Because if there's one thing Red Bull has mastered over the years, it's not starting strong. It's finishing stronger than everyone else. Their history speaks for itself. They have consistently been one of the most aggressive in-season development teams in the sport's modern era. Nobody at Milton Keynes is giving up. Not Verstappen, not the engineers, not the strategists. Mekies confirmed it directly. Of course, it's always going to be difficult to get a second back because obviously they will improve as well. But nobody is giving up here, and that is the fight we are in. All eyes now are on Suzuka. And this isn't just another race. It's a test. A real one. Red Bull specifically called out Japan as a step-up round, and Suzuka is the perfect circuit to separate recovery from reality. The track is unforgiving. High-speed corners that demand aerodynamic stability, tight technical sections that punish any imbalance, and an overall layout that exposes every single weakness in a car's setup. If the RB22 is still broken, Suzuka will show it immediately and brutally. But if Red Bull has found something, if the upgrades work, if even a fraction of the weight comes off, the improvement will be visible from the very first lap. The wider picture makes this moment even more critical. Mercedes has taken back-to-back 1-2 finishes to open the season. They're not just leading. They're controlling the tempo of the entire championship. Ferrari is close enough to pressure and fast enough to fight, which means Red Bull isn't just chasing one team, they're chasing two. And both of those teams are still developing, still improving, still pulling further ahead with each passing weekend. That's the real danger. Not that Red Bull can't fix the RB22, but that by the time they do, it might already be too late. Formula One doesn't wait. Development windows close. Upgrades fail. Rivals adapt. Every race Red Bull spends solving problems is a race Mercedes spends building an even bigger championship lead. The clock is running, and it doesn't stop between Grands Prix. And yet, there's a compelling argument building inside the paddock. Insiders are pointing to something worth paying attention to. That underneath the weight, underneath the early season reliability issues, the RB22 might actually be quick. That the aerodynamic platform, the power delivery concept, the fundamental architecture of the car might not be broken at all. It's just buried, hidden under excess mass. Masked by inefficiencies that, in theory, can be solved. If that's true, then Mercedes and Ferrari aren't just watching a struggling team, they're watching a ticking clock. Because the moment Red Bull strips that weight down, the moment the car starts operating as it was designed to, everything changes. Mekies put it plainly, "We have a great group of talented people on the campus, and I have full confidence that we will get through our current limitations thanks to a massive push from everyone and improve our package rapidly." Rapidly, that word matters, because in Formula One, rapid development can flip an entire season in a matter of weeks. Suddenly, that second deficit disappears. Suddenly, Verstappen isn't fighting the car anymore. He's unleashing it. And anyone who watched 2023 knows exactly what happens when that combination clicks. It's not competitive. It's domination. The question was never whether Red Bull is struggling. We've seen that clearly. The real question is whether Mercedes and Ferrari are already too far ahead, or whether they're about to be blindsided by a team that has been quietly rebuilding itself in the shadows. Because if Red Bull is telling the truth, then Japan won't just be another race. It'll be the moment everything starts to change.